Friends, we got some potato issues out there. We're getting warnings from a number of different sources. We're getting a lot of warnings from South Africa to Russia to Idaho. We're hearing a lot that's pointing to the fact that we're going to have some serious potato issues this year. We're going to walk you through some of the headlines of what's going on out there. We're going to walk you through some of the big names, some of the big number locations that really put out a lot of potatoes usually, because this is really the third most important crop in the world. When it comes to feeding people, people eat a lot of potatoes. And we're talking a lot of potatoes. A lot of the world's calories come from potatoes. And I'm sure you guys probably eat some potatoes out there, right? So we're going to be seeing this shortage developing over the next little bit. You've already seen issues over the past year. There's been a lot of talk about that. But we're going to take a whirlwind tour. Just to give you just some context here, the number one producer of potatoes out there is China by a long shot. In 2022, which is the latest numbers on this site I got here in front of me, 95 million, 95 million tons. That's a lot, right? That's a big deal. Just for comparison, the next biggest producer. Now, this is not exporter. This is producer. So a lot like China basically eats all the potatoes it harvests. It doesn't export anything. Same thing with India. 95 million millions down to 56 million millions. We're talking about a pretty big drop there. Not quite cut in half, but, somewhere in the ballpark. Just for comparison's sake, before we get there, United States is about 18 million. So yeah, China produces about a little over 4 times as many potatoes as the United States does. India produces right at 3 times as many potatoes as the United States. So pretty big deal there. They're really big players. We need to talk about India. We need to talk about China, of course. Ukraine is the next country. This is 2022 harvest, probably from the previous year. So this is pre-war. Obviously, we've had a major impact from the war. Then Russia. Russia actually produces less potatoes than Ukraine did historically. But both of them produce more potatoes than the United States. But then we got some countries in Europe. We got France. We got Belgium. We got the Netherlands. We got Germany. So let's hop in and see what's going on out there with potatoes. First thing, Idaho. Idaho is a big producer of potatoes. Idaho reduces acreage in 2024. Okay? How big of a drop are we talking about here? Normally, they plant 328,000 acres. That was the previous year. It looks like they're going to have about 305,000 acres. So if you don't plant them, then you can't harvest them, right? So we're looking at about 10% decrease in acreage before any water issues, just the ones that were planted. Now, we know a whole bunch of those acres have been damaged because they've not been allowed to be watered. We saw a late frost in parts of Idaho that looks to be impacting potatoes, as it says. And also a bigger issue could be the hailstorms that came through. So 10% less planted. Then on top of that, the hailstorms. On top of that, the late frost. On top of that, all that land that's not going to be able to be irrigated because of the cobalt mining and all that. Okay? So Idaho's kind of a big deal in the United States for potatoes, but okay. That's still small potatoes compared to a place like India. Let's see what's going on over in India. Heat wave impacts potato production and prices in India. Okay, so this place is half as big as China. It's 3 times bigger than the United States when it comes to potatoes. Summer heat wave in India has led to a decrease in summer crops and vegetables, causing a rise in food prices, including potatoes. The scarcity of summer vegetables has shifted consumer preference towards potatoes. So they're eating more potatoes because all the other crops are having issues as well. So a decline of approximately 3% from the previous year's potato harvest. Okay, it doesn't sound like much, but remember, 3% times 3 times what the United States produces, we're looking at, 9-ish% decrease in their crop. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of tons of potatoes. How many potatoes less are you going to eat? Now, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal are leading potato states, and this is where we're seeing big issues. We also saw flooding in those areas due to the monsoon. All right. Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal, the leading potato-producing states, contribute to nearly half of India's potato output. Despite the arrival of monsoon rains, the heat wave, so we got the monsoon and then we got the heat wave, continues in north and central regions of India. This situation led to an increase in potato prices impacting the food inflation rate, which reached 8.7% in April. So prices of potatoes going up due to impacts from the heat wave. This is how the entitled "How Extreme Rain from Climate Change is Ruining Potato Crops, Driving Up Prices and Leaving Farmers in Deep Water." Hundreds of thousands of potatoes failed to make it to market in Europe. So this is specifically talking about Europe. A region that eats about 90 kilograms per capita per year of potatoes, the world's highest. English white potato prices up 81% year over year. All-time high potato prices in Europe. And why is that? Well, partly is they used to import cheap potatoes from Ukraine. Let's see where that's looking now. Cultivation of potatoes in Ukraine decreased by 36%. 36% less crops planted means you're going to have a lot less potatoes harvested. And a lot of those were exports, so it is going to impact other countries, other places. So we got that. We got overall potato yields are increasing though. So that's good. But we're seeing a decrease in planted. So let's continue in Europe, shall we? The great potato shortage. European processors scramble as supply dwindles and prices surge. The demand for free buy supplies of potatoes in the EU remains robust. So there's high demand for potatoes, but the supply is tightening. This is because many growers no longer have sufficient stocks to offer on the free market due to quality issues that compromised storability caused by last year's wet harvest. So we got harvest issues from the prior year, wet. And let's see what the latest info is out there on Belgium and France and, like the Netherlands. There is still a long way to go until Belgian main potato crop. Let's see here. At the moment, the potato market is quiet. You can see that everyone is preparing for the new season. We now have mainly French potatoes on the line because for the main harvest of Belgian potatoes, we will have to be patient for some time. In France, we have started harvesting. In Belgium, not yet. Some early potatoes are already being harvested here, but there is mainly product going towards industry. In Belgium, of course, it's all a bit later. Due to the wet conditions in the spring, planting was on average 4 to 6 weeks late. Eventually, cultivation did partly make up for it, but that still means there is a 3 to 5 week delay. Main concerns: Belgium, small part of southern Netherlands, and northern France. Big potato cultivation areas, so we are going to keep an eye on that. This thing's flashing lights in my eyes here. We'll get that off the screen there. All right, so here's another article talking about what we're looking at here with the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, signs of the shortage are becoming apparent in the processing industry. The processing organization in the Netherlands, VAVI, processed 321,000 tons of potatoes in January of this year, a decrease of 10%, 10.8% compared to the prior year. There has been a shortage of processing potatoes due to the challenges in obtaining them from suppliers. Dutch processing has become more reliant on supply from neighboring countries. They're importing more. Just tells you what's going on out there. And your favorite potato chip might be at risk as new potato disease has been identified in Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania is not like the biggest potato producer, but it is a potato producer, particularly when it comes to potato chips. There's a bunch of potato chips based in eastern Pennsylvania where they grow basically the potatoes for those potato chips. Several species of bacteria that had not been seen before in the state, as well as one that had not ever been found in the U.S., were detected in potatoes across 26 fields in Pennsylvania. If these diseases were to spread across the state and cause crops to fail, it could be disastrous. So just one thing after the next, right? Let's hop over to Ireland because, you think of potatoes, you think of the potato famine in Ireland, right? A potato shortage may be upon Ireland following nightmare growing season. Harsh weather conditions. It's from this summer. For the past 12 months, potato growers in Ireland have been hit by what they've described as a nightmare that has delayed the harvesting of key crops this season. Last year, around 700 acres of Irish potatoes were lost due to extreme, unprecedented flooding and frost. Overall, yield was poor as well. Unfortunately, the potato supply hasn't picked up in anticipation of the new season, and a more limited supply is what's anticipated in the coming months. All right. In Ireland, it takes about 120 days for them to mature. The potatoes should have been planted early in the spring in March and into April, but according to Ryan, that's still a work in process. This is as of this is early June when this article came to. So they were still planting in June when they should have been planting in March and April. So is that going to impact potato? It may be 6 or 8 weeks later than normal. That's not good. That's going to mean a bad crop there in Ireland. Let's hop on down to South Africa. As we just hop around the world, we're just seeing bad news, bad news, bad news, right? Black frost in South Africa's Limpopo region hit potato crops hard, spurs possible shortage and price hikes. So we got that happening down in South Africa. Now, we have been relatively silent, of course, about the biggest producer of potatoes out there, of any of them, which is China. And the reason for that is because China doesn't allow information out on crop estimates or how bad things are. But we've seen a lot of heavy flooding. They've flooded a lot of fields in the main potato growing areas again. And when we look at imports of food products, including potatoes for China, we're seeing it looks like the Chinese government thinks that they're going to have shortfalls in a lot of the crops out there. How bad's the potato harvest going to be? We may never actually know the actual numbers of Chinese potato harvest. Will China ever really know the numbers for their actual potato harvest. We don't know about that either, because even the government that requires all its underlings to share that information or give that information up the chain of command, they have a tendency to lie about it. The local governments lie to the central government about how good things went, and so the cover-ups never really go away. So not only do we not have good information out here, outside China, they may not ever have good information inside China as well. But we see the major food imports spiking in China. We also see major potato imports happening again this summer, which is comparable to last year, but actually a little bit more. And last year, we found out that the potato harvest was quite bad. So we got problems in India, China, Ireland, the European countries, including Western Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, France up there because of the heavy rainfall in those areas. Ireland is having problems. They got their potatoes in really late this year too. We got problems in Idaho. We got problems with disease in Pennsylvania. Canada looks like it's doing fairly well right now, but we'll see what the harvest looks like. Just, 2 years ago, Prince Edward Island, which produces a large amount of the potatoes in Canada, they didn't know until they dug the things out of the ground that basically it was a loss. Like much of the harvest was a loss, that the United States would not allow imports of those potatoes into the U.S. at all, that they were going to be stopped at the border. And Canada found that they couldn't export them anywhere. And they lost a bunch of that crop too. But out of fear of that potato diseases spreading, the United States didn't want them, and other countries didn't want them either. So once again, that happened after they started harvesting, and it's going to be a little bit before Canada starts harvesting in Prince Edward Island. So what's all the summation of this? One, if you like potatoes, get your potatoes. We're still going off of last year's harvest of potatoes. That's going to continue on for another month or two. But if we have a really bad harvest, we're going to start seeing prices of potatoes start spiking upwards. We're already seeing those prices upwards in Europe particularly. Fresh potatoes are good, but getting your dehydrated potatoes, getting your potato flakes, getting all those things set up. If you like potatoes in flake form for like mashed potatoes, that's an easy thing to get set up, right? So go ahead and get more potato flakes. If you like canned potatoes and you just like buying them that way, then buy canned potatoes. They're still relatively cheap and they're still available. If you want to can your own, then have at it, right? But if you want to plant your own, make sure that you're getting ones that actually haven't been sprayed with the chemicals that stop the eyes from forming. I found, so basically you need organic potatoes, or you need potatoes like Aldi potatoes don't get sprayed. They do start forming eyes. Just let potatoes go bad, and if they start sprouting an eye, that's good. You can cut out the eyes and plant each of them as independent plants. Make sure you understand what time of year to be planting in your area. If you're doing greenhouse, you can do that more year-round, but all those things are good ideas. So get more prepared, because potatoes could be an issue going forward. You heard it first from here, and hopefully you'll heed the warning. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.